By the time I reached the front gate, the clown was already making balloon animals. Children screamed with laughter. Music drifted over the fence. The smell of grilled burgers filled the afternoon air. Someone had rented a petting zoo, ponies, goats, a tiny white donkey wearing a blue ribbon. It looked like the sort of birthday party grandparents dream about. The only problem, I was standing outside it. A young security guard stepped into my path. "Sir, I need to check the guest list." I smiled. "You won't find my name." He looked confused. "I'm the birthday boy's grandfather." He nodded politely. One moment, he spoke into an earpiece. A minute later, my daughter appeared, Sophia. 41 years old, duster's sunglasses, perfect hair, expensive white dress. She walked toward me without smiling. "Dada actually came," I laughed softly. "You invited me." She folded her arms. "I sent that invitation before we finalized the guest list." For a second, I thought she was joking. She wasn't. "My name is Thomas Mercer. I'm 76 years old. For 38 years, I owned Mercer Financial Advisors. Not the biggest firm in the state, but one built on a simple principle: never spend tomorrow's security to impress people today." It worked by retirement. I had enough for myself, enough to help my daughter, enough to make sure my grandson, Noah, would never graduate college drowning in debt, or so I believed. Sophia wasn't always like this. When Noah was born, she cried because she couldn't afford diapers. I quietly paid the mortgage for 18 months. She never told anyone. When her husband lost his construction business, I bought the family SUV at twice its value, called it an investment. Really, it was rescue. Every Christmas, every emergency, every tuition payment, I showed up, never asking for credit, never expecting applause. I thought that's what fathers did. Then 3 years ago, Sophia's life changed. Her marketing company landed a national client. Money arrived fast. Recognition arrived faster. Soon, every conversation became about appearances, Dundry clubs, private schools, exclusive neighborhoods. People stopped being neighbors. They became connections. The birthday party reflected all of it. Valet parking, professional photographers, ice sculptures, a magician flown in from Chicago. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything carefully designed to impress people who'd forget it by Monday. I held up the wrapped birthday gift, a small wooden treasure chest, handmade. I'd spent 6 weeks building it. Inside, a compass that had belonged to Noah's great-grandfather, and a handwritten journal explaining every man in our family who had carried it. It wasn't expensive. It was irreplaceable. Sophia looked at the box, then back at me. "Dad, we talked about this." "No, you talked. I listened." She sighed impatiently. "My clients are here. My investors are here. I can't have—" She stopped herself. "Can't have what?" She glanced toward the entrance, then lowered her voice. "You don't belong here anymore." The words landed harder than any slap. Not because strangers heard them, because my 8-year-old grandson did. Noah had wandered toward the gate chasing a balloon. He stopped, looked at me, then at his mother. "Grandpa?" Sophia immediately stepped between us. "Noah, go back inside." But Grandpa brought me something. She took the wooden chest from my hands, without opening it, without asking what it was. She handed it to an event assistant. "Put this with the vendor supplies." Then she looked at me one final time. "I'm asking you nicely. Please leave." The security guard shifted awkwardly. I smiled at him. "You're just doing your job." Then I looked at my daughter. "No, you are." I turned around, walked back toward my car, never raising my voice, never looking back. Halfway across the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A notification from Mercer Family Trust. Annual beneficiary review available. I stared at the screen for several seconds, then, for the first time in 20 years, I pressed the button I'd always ignored. Review beneficiaries. I wasn't angry. I wasn't looking for revenge. I simply realized something. If I truly didn't belong in my grandson's life anymore, then perhaps my money didn't belong there either. And my daughter had absolutely no idea. The birthday party she'd worked so hard to make perfect had just become the most expensive celebration of her entire life. I didn't drive home. Instead, I parked 3 blocks away at the public library. It wasn't because I wanted to read. It was because I needed somewhere quiet enough to hear myself think. The birthday music was still echoing in my ears, not the songs, Noah's voice. "Grandpa?" One word, one question. One memory I already knew would follow me for the rest of my life. At exactly 3 o'clock, My phone rang. It wasn't Sophia. It wasn't family. It was Evelyn Cross, 78 years old, retired judge, chairwoman of the Mercer Family Trust. She sounded surprised. "Thomas, I just received an alert. I've never seen you access the beneficiary review before. I know. Is everything all right?" I looked through the library window. Children were riding bicycles outside. Not anymore. The Mercer Family Trust had never been a secret, but almost nobody understood it, even Sophia. She believed it was simply money waiting for Noah's 18th birthday. It wasn't. The trust wasn't designed to make someone rich. It was designed to protect a child, even from the adults raising him. When I created it 20 years earlier, I'd insisted on one unusual clause. If the trustee believed any parent was using the child primarily as financial leverage, the distributions could be frozen indefinitely. My attorney had laughed when I requested it. "What are the chances you'll ever need this?" I remembered my answer perfectly. "I hope." "Zero," Evelyn asked quietly. "Do you want to schedule a review?" I closed my eyes. "No, I want a full audit." Silence. "Then you think this is that serious?" "I think." My daughter stopped seeing her father and started seeing an investment. 3 days later, the trustees gathered. No lawyers, no cameras, just 5 people who had known me for decades. I didn't begin by talking about the birthday party. Instead, I placed a photograph on the conference table. Sophia Abinge, 24, holding newborn Noah, standing in the tiny apartment where rain leaked through the ceiling. Every trustee smiled. They remembered those days. Then I placed another photograph beside it, the birthday party, taken from social media, luxury tents, ice sculptures, imported flowers, a famous television magician. Someone finally asked, "What changed?" I answered honestly, "I don't know." Then Evelyn asked something unexpected. "When was the last time you saw Noah without an audience?" I thought Christmas. No, earlier. His school concert. No, actually, almost 11 months. Every visit since then had been birthdays. Holiday parties, fundraisers, business dinners. Always crowded, always photographed, always sponsored by someone's company. Never just family. I suddenly realized something. I hadn't been excluded from one birthday. I'd been slowly removed from my grandson's life, one event at a time. Before anyone spoke again, the trust's financial advisor slid a folder toward me. "There's something else." Inside, invoices, private school tuition, horseback riding lessons, European summer camps, nothing unusual, until I reached the final page. Events expenses, Noah's birthday, nearly $60,000. I frowned. "Who approved this?" The advisor answered. "We didn't." "They submitted a reimbursement request. For what?" He looked uncomfortable. "They described the birthday party as an educational networking event benefiting Noah's future." The room became completely silent. One trustee removed his glasses. "They tried charging the trust for the party." The advisor nodded. "Catering, luxury decorations, celebrity entertainment, designer gift bags. Everything paid from Noah's future. Not because he needed it, because they believed no one would question it." Evelyn slowly closed the folder. "I've overseen family trusts for 36 years. I've seen greed. I've seen entitlement. But I've never seen grandparents locked out while being asked to finance the party." She looked directly at me. "Thomas, the trust isn't in danger. Noah isn't in danger. But the purpose of the trust certainly is." I nodded. "What happens now?" She answered calmly. "We protect the child from everyone, including his parents." At that exact moment, across town, Sophia was celebrating what she believed had been her most successful birthday party ever. She had no idea the people she'd spent years trying to impress were about to become the least important audience she'd ever faced, because the only room that mattered now contained 5 trustees, 1 grandfather, and 60 million reasons why appearances would no longer matter. The trustees didn't vote that afternoon. They investigated for the next 2 weeks. No one contacted Sophia. No warning, no accusations, no dramatic confrontations. Just quiet work, accountants, auditors, independent reviewers, because the Mercer Family Trust had one rule above everything else: never punish with emotion, only respond with facts. The first report arrived on a Monday morning. Evelyn called me personally. "You need to see this." I drove to the trust office. She handed me a folder almost an inch thick. It wasn't just the birthday. I opened it. Dutnars are clothing purchased under educational wardrobe. luxury vacations labeled cultural enrichment, a new luxury SUV listed as safe transportation for the beneficiary, private club memberships, 5-star resorts, even a swimming pool. Each expense carried the same explanation: for Noah's future development. I looked at Evelyn. They used my grandson as an expense account. She nodded quietly. For nearly 3 years. One trustee leaned back in his chair. The sad part, the child probably has no idea. No, I replied. He doesn't, and he never will, because I wasn't going to let Noah carry guilt that belonged to adults. 3 days later, Sophia received an email, not from me, from the trust subject. Mandatory beneficiary compliance review. She called within 5 minutes. Dad. Her voice was cheerful. I got some weird legal email. I wouldn't know. You don't? No, she laughed. You're terrible with paperwork. I'll handle it. I simply wished her a pleasant afternoon, then ended the call. For the first time, she wasn't talking to the father she thought she controlled. She was talking to someone completely outside the process. The review meeting lasted less than an hour. Sophia arrived carrying 3 binders, color-coded, perfectly organized. She expected to impress everyone. Instead, Evelyn asked only one question. Can you explain why the trust paid for your country club membership? Sophia blinked. It benefits networking. For Noah. And how does your husband golfing every Saturday benefit Noah? Silence. Another trustee opened a different file. Can you explain the Italian vacation? Cultural education. Noah wasn't on that trip. Another page. The birthday party, educational networking. One trustee smiled politely. Could you identify which 8-year-olds attended for professional networking? Nobody laughed. Sophia's confidence slowly disappeared. Finally, Evelyn slid one last photograph across the table. The picture wasn't from the birthday. It showed me, standing outside the entrance gate, holding Noah's gift, the security guard blocking my path. Who took this? Sophia asked. The event photographer. You hired him. He documented everything. She stared at the image, then noticed something she'd never seen before. Behind me, Noah, crying, reaching toward the gate. The photographer had captured the exact moment she turned him away. The room became completely silent. Evelyn folded her hands. Mrs. Collins, please explain something. You submitted $60,000 in party expenses. You described the event as being entirely for Noah's benefit. She gently pushed the photograph forward. Then why was the one person who came carrying a handmade family heirloom the only guest denied entry? Sophia opened her mouth. Nothing came out, because there wasn't an answer, not one that sounded reasonable. The trustees voted unanimously. No speeches, no anger, just procedure. All discretionary distributions suspended. Immediately, every future request would require unanimous trustee approval. Every receipt, every invoice, every dollar independently verified. The trust hadn't been taken away. It had simply become impossible to misuse. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, Sophia wasn't angry. She was panicked. Dad, they froze everything. I know. You have to call them. I can't. They listen to you. I looked at the old wooden treasure chest sitting on my dining room table, the one she'd tossed into the vendor pile. The event assistant had quietly mailed it to me after finding my address inside. It had never reached Noah. No, I answered softly. They listened to evidence. Then I ended the call. Across town, Sophia was finally discovering something she'd forgotten years ago. Trust was never built with money. And once lost, no amount of money could buy it back. I didn't attend the final trust meeting. For the first time since creating it, I stayed home. Not because I didn't care, because the trust no longer belonged to me. It belonged to the purpose Helen and I had written into it 23 years earlier. Protect the child, even when protecting the child means disappointing the parent. 2 months passed. Then something happened that no trustee had expected. Noah wrote me a letter, not a text, not an email, an actual handwritten letter. The envelope was covered in crooked dinosaur stickers. Inside, 3 sheets of notebook paper. The first sentence made me smile. Grandpa, Mom said you're busy, but I don't think busy people stop loving kids. I had to put the letter down, just for a moment, to breathe. He'd written about baseball, about school, about losing another tooth. Then, near the bottom, one sentence, I never got to open the wooden box you brought me. I looked toward the bookshelf. The treasure chest still sat exactly where I'd placed it after the event assistant mailed it back, unopened, waiting. That afternoon, I called Evelyn. "I'd like to change something." She laughed. "I thought you promised you were done changing documents." "I am. This isn't about paperwork. It's about a birthday gift." 1 week later, the trustees approved something the trust had never offered before. Not more money. Not another distribution, a new requirement. Every beneficiary under 18 would now receive 1 annual legacy day. No caterers, no photographers, no sponsors, no business guests, no luxury venues. Just the child and the family members the child personally chose. The trust would pay only for simple experiences. Fishing, camping, museums, cooking together, building something, creating memories. Never performances. One trustee smiled. "This may be the best amendment we've ever adopted." 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Noah, not Sophia, not through speakerphone, just Noah. "Grandpa?" "Hi, buddy. Mom said I can ask you something. Anything. Can my legacy day be with you?" I couldn't answer immediately, not because I didn't want to, because tears arrived before words did. Finally, I'd like that very much. Saturday morning, there were no balloons, no security guards, no valet parking, no photographers, just the two of us. He opened the wooden treasure chest on my workshop table. Inside, the old brass compass rested in velvet. He held it carefully. "It still works. So did your great-grandfather." I smiled, then opened the journal. For hours, we read stories. About the man who crossed the Atlantic with that compass, about the grandfather who built our first farmhouse, about his great-grandmother Helen burning pancakes every anniversary because she insisted on cooking breakfast before I woke up. Noah laughed so hard. Milk came out of his nose. It was the best birthday celebration we'd ever had. 3 months late, exactly on time. Sophia never interrupted. She never asked for photographs. She never requested reimbursement. Instead, she quietly waited in the driveway when Noah and I returned. He ran to her, holding the compass tightly. "Mom, did you know great-great-grandpa carried this?" She smiled. "No, I didn't." For the first time in years, she wasn't pretending to know everything. She was simply listening. As Noah climbed into her car, Sophia walked toward me. "I finally understand." I looked at her. "No, you finally stopped performing." She lowered her eyes. "I spent years trying to give Noah impressive memories. You gave him real ones." I nodded. Children don't remember the size of the party. They remember who made them feel important. The Mercer Family Trust still exists today. It still pays for Noah's education, his future, his opportunities. But every new family who joins the trust receives one sentence on the very first page, a sentence inspired by one locked gate, one forgotten grandfather, and one little boy who simply wanted his grandpa at his birthday. It reads, "An inheritance should never replace a relationship. If protecting one requires sacrificing the other, you're protecting the wrong thing." That became the trust's greatest gift. Not the money, the reminder that the richest children are rarely the ones with the largest trust funds. They're the ones who never have to wonder whether someone they love belongs at their birthday party.